Thank you, Greg Palcott, on that from London. Thank you, Greg. Sandra.
We are going to bring Whitaker before the Congress. One of the key decisions that the Attorney General will make, whoever's in that role, is when Bob Mueller puts together a report on, among other things, obstruction of justice, will that report be shared with the American people? Will it be shared with Congress? The American people need to know, they deserve to know, whether their president is interfering with the impartial administration of justice.
Well, likely incoming House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff continuing his public feud with President Trump, promising to get to the bottom of Matthew Whitaker's appointment as acting Attorney General and whether Whitaker plans to interfere with the Mueller investigation. For all this, we turn to former Attorney General Michael Mukasey. He joins us on set this morning. Michael, good to have you here this morning.
Good to be with you.
You just heard it from Adam Schiff. He is vowing to bring Whitaker before Congress. He believes that this appointment was unconstitutional. In his words, he believes the acting AG was chosen by the president for the purpose of interfering with the Mueller investigation. Is there anything that you have seen or heard that indicates to you or concerns you about Whitaker's ability to carry out his position? One word?
No. Matt Whitaker's appointment was lawful and, as it turns out, constitutional. I had some doubts about that. The Office of Legal Counsel, which is the government's principal go-to office for legal opinions, issued a 20-page opinion describing 200 years of practice in which people who fit Matt Whitaker's description have been appointed as acting heads of agencies, and so I think it is constitutional. That said, I think it would be a good idea if the president put somebody, at least put somebody forward for nomination to be the permanent Attorney General, and that can't be Matt Whitaker. That would be unlawful. So you're not allowed to nominate an acting. So he ought to basically focus on who's going to do it long term. Right.
Well, one of the complaints that you hear from Adam Schiff and other Democrats who are opposed to Whitaker being in this position is that he's not being transparent enough, not communicating to Congress his intentions. Does he need to be more transparent with Congress?
He's not there to communicate with Congress. He's there to run the Justice Department. And for him to be simply talking to Congress, that's not his job. It wasn't my job when I was there. If Adam Schiff wants to find out what his intentions are, he intends, I guess, to subpoena him. But to talk about obstruction of justice, I think, really misreads the law. An investigation is not subject to the obstruction statute. The obstruction statute has to do with obstructing a proceeding, and there's a lot of law to the effect that an investigation is not a proceeding. So we can put that aside. Secondly, the Mueller investigation, for what it's done, appears to be nearing the end. And finally, there hasn't been, I mean, Mueller was put in place to determine whether there was a crime committed in relation to a relationship between the president or his campaign and the Russians. So far, there has been nothing on that score. Zero.
When you talk about the Mueller investigation coming to a close and what happens when that report is actually generated and then who will see it, Alan Dershowitz was on one of the Sunday programs over the weekend, and he had this to say about its conclusion.
I think the report is going to be devastating to the president, and I know that the president's team is already working on a response to the report, and so at some point, when the report's made public, it will be made public probably with a response alongside.
Trying to figure out exactly what that means there, because he says he does not believe that it will criminally implicate the president, but he says it will be politically devastating to the president. What do you think he meant by that?
I have no idea what he meant, and although I like and known Alan Dershowitz for years, I'm not sure that he knew what he meant either. If what he's saying is that the report is going to contain a lot of innuendo, then obviously the president is going to respond. He says the president is already working on drafting a response to a report that hasn't been released yet. So it's sort of everybody knows what everybody else is going to say.
To be clear, he said the critical questions are largely political when it comes to this report. When he says devastating, just to make sure he gets his words in here in defense of Dershowitz, I mean, it's going to paint a picture, he said, that's going to be politically very devastating. He says this will instead lay out the facts of the case. He suggested that the president's more legally vulnerable when in matters related to his business. So I wanted to make sure I get that in there. As far as the report itself.
By the way, the special prosecutor was not put there to investigate the president's business. So if that's going to be in his report, it's going to be off the mark.
Perhaps that's why he's saying them politically devastating,
right,
not criminally. So when it comes to the report itself, it's up to Whitaker whether or not the public gets to see this, right?
Well, in the first instance, I suppose, although, as you know, Washington leaks like a sieve. Somebody once said that the ship of state is the only ship that leaks from the top. And obviously, whether Matt Whitaker releases it or not, somebody is going to get it out there, so it'll be out there.
If you're Whitaker, do you release it?
Sure, because there's no point in trying to keep it secret. The president's going to respond, and it'll come out, as Professor Dershowitz said, with his response.
Finally, I want to ask you about this rare rebuke of a sitting president by a Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, firing back at the president for what he referred to as an Obama judge. It's very rare to see this sort of public sparring between a sitting president and a Supreme Court justice.
It is rare, although it's happened before. President Obama, in his 2010 State of the Union, criticized the Supreme Court to their face. They were sitting right in the audience, and he issued a rebuke to them over the Citizens United decision. In fact, you may recall that Justice Alito was sitting there mouthing the words, "Not true, not true," right? And so there's been this kind of exchange before. It's not real attractive. The fact is that judges are there to enforce the Constitution and generally do their level best. On the other hand, judges do come with opinions and points of view,
Very interesting to see that play out. And by the way, before I let you go, it's great to have you on set this morning. It is a very special day for someone close to you.
It is a very special day for my wife. It is her birthday, and I want to wish her a happy birthday and tell everybody that there's nothing I've ever done since we've been married that's been worthwhile that I've done without her help.
Very lovely to hear that, and happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday, Susan.
Thank you very much, Susan. All right, Bill.